The meeting wasn't called like a storm warning. No one said the house was on fire. There was no blood in the water, no high-pitched voices, no panic. That would have been easier. Instead, it came like most betrayals do, calm, measured, with the softest voice in the room. It was a Sunday. Cold light spilled through the windows of our Seattle suburb home. One of those overcast days where the sky looks like a closed lid. The neighborhood was quiet outside. Wet driveways, bare trees, someone's leaf blower in the distance. The usual sounds of a life that pretends to be whole. I had just finished vacuuming out the mudroom, wiping down the boots her sons never bothered to clean. I was still in the clothes I'd worked in all morning. Sleeves rolled, sweat dried cold on the back of my neck. I had dirt under my nails from fixing the rain gutter, a task no one else had noticed needed doing. Carol called us to the kitchen like she always did. "Quick check-in," she said with that polite, managerial tone that didn't leave room for no. Her sons, Jeremy and Luke, were already seated, half glancing at their phones, the casual arrogance of adulthood worn like cologne. Jeremy wore his earbuds during the whole thing. Luke had a vape tucked between his fingers, blowing clouds into his sleeve when she wasn't looking. They were both in their 20s now, grown enough to expect respect, young enough to give none back. The smell of reheated coffee lingered in the air, mixing with the last traces of burnt toast. I stood across from Carol, leaned lightly on the back of a chair I wasn't invited to sit in. "I just think," she began, setting down her mug with the precision of someone about to deliver a verdict. "Going forward, we keep family finances in the family. Michael doesn't need to interfere with decisions that don't really involve him." Just like that. Not angry, not even direct. She spoke as if I wasn't standing there, as if I were a helpful neighbor they were phasing out of the group chat. Jeremy didn't even look up. Luke let out a little laugh through his nose and said, "Finally." Carol looked down at the notes she had scribbled on a notepad. Not a budget ledger, not a spreadsheet, just a grocery list and a few bullet points. It was all theater. She wasn't tracking anything. She was declaring something. She continued, still looking at the page. "It's not that we don't appreciate what you've done. I know you've been generous. But when it comes to long-term planning, college funds, the house equity, and the Roth accounts, I just think it makes more sense to keep it between me and the boys. It's our family. It's our future. Our family. Our future." That "our" didn't include me. I felt it like a pull in the chest. Not a heart attack. Worse, it was clarity. They had rehearsed this. Maybe not word for word, but in posture, in glances, in tone. I wasn't being spoken to, I was being spoken around. Like someone breaking a lease in a house they no longer wanted to share. Carol turned toward me then, just enough to acknowledge I was still standing there. "Of course, if you still want to help with utilities or emergencies, that's your choice. I'm not saying you can't contribute. I'm just saying, this isn't your lane. Not my lane. After 15 years of fixing every broken thing under this roof, from the roof itself to the boys' suspension letters, to the bleeding kitchen faucet that took me 6 hours to rebuild on a Sunday when the plumber canceled. Not my lane." I glanced at Jeremy. He was scrolling through his phone, probably looking at flights or games or stocks, something he thought mattered more than this moment. Luke smirked. "No offense," he said, which is how offense always enters a room. "It's just easier this way." Carol nodded, sipping her coffee like the discussion was done. That was it. The meeting ended before it started. There was no room for disagreement, because disagreement required acknowledgement. And they had stripped me of that too. I was no longer a voice, just a hand, just a bank account with a face. The floor beneath me felt more like ice than wood. I couldn't move for a moment, not because I was stunned. I've known this family long enough to stop being surprised, but because I knew something had shifted, something final. I wanted to ask her to repeat it, to say it louder, to own it with the sharpness it deserved. But she wouldn't. Carol had always mastered the art of clean betrayal. No yelling, no bruises, just statements like scalpels, precise, sterile, and meant to leave you wondering if you were imagining the pain. I had helped raise her boys, paid for their orthodontics, their broken phones, their summer trips with friends they never introduced me to. I remembered waiting in the parking lot at midnight so Luke could finish his shift at a burger joint he got fired from 3 weeks later. I remembered Jeremy calling me, not his real father, when he dented the truck and needed cash for repairs. I remembered how they'd both roll their eyes when I asked about their grades, as if I were playing a role in a play no one believed in anymore. And still, I stayed. I showed up. I kept paying. Because I thought eventually presence would become belonging. I thought being needed would one day become being respected. Carol stood up then, gathering the notepad, adjusting her sweater like the meeting was over. "I'm going to take the dogs out," she said, already walking past me. And just like that, it was done. I remained by the chair, my hand still resting on the back of it. I looked at her sons, both already back in their digital worlds, and saw it clearly. They didn't think I'd do anything. They didn't believe I had that kind of gravity. In their minds, I would keep paying, keep fixing, keep fading. I had been useful for so long, they mistook it for weakness. But I didn't speak. I didn't argue. I nodded once, small, barely perceptible, like a man clocking the moment he'd been erased. Carol was right about one thing. This wasn't mine. Not the table. Not the meeting. Not the sons who shared her blood but not my name. And if it wasn't mine, then neither was the responsibility. I didn't speak. Not then. Not in the kitchen. Not as the words settled over me like a cold fog. I stood there with my hand still on the back of the chair, as if letting go of it would make everything fall. But I knew better. It had already fallen. I just hadn't heard it hit the floor yet. Carol walked out with the dogs like it was a Tuesday, like the world hadn't just tilted. Jeremy went upstairs without a glance. Luke wandered out back and lit a cigarette. Against the rules. Against the house. But I didn't say anything. Why would I? The rules were hers. The house too. Silence can be a wound, but it can also be a *p*n. I let mine spread like oil. The rest of the day passed in fragments. Half-spoken sentences, passing footsteps, doors opening and closing. I washed the dishes that weren't mine, the coffee mug she left on the counter, the one with "Love You More" printed on the side, a joke from a better time. I dried it, put it back in the cabinet and felt nothing. By evening, Carol was humming in the kitchen again, stirring something in a pot, back turned to me like always. She asked me if I wanted pasta. I said sure. My voice sounded strange in my throat, like a guest rehearsing lines. Dinner came and went. The boys didn't join. They said they were busy. They weren't. I could hear Jeremy's game console through the walls. Luke was outside again, his laughter echoing from the back porch as he spoke to someone on speakerphone. Carol didn't mention the meeting once. She just talked about a new coworker at her office and how the neighbor's tree might be diseased. I nodded, chewed, swallowed. I said nothing of value. I didn't need to. Some choices are made loud. Mine wasn't. That night, when she curled into bed beside me, she reached for my arm. Her hand was soft, familiar. I didn't pull away, but I didn't return the gesture either. I lay there still, listening to the rhythm of her breath as she fell asleep. She had always mistaken my silence for surrender. She didn't understand that silence, when chosen, is not the absence of resistance. It's the beginning of it. "Don't interfere," she had said. "It isn't yours." I took it literally. For the first time, I accepted her words not as an insult but as instruction. If this life wasn't mine, then the labor shouldn't be either. I closed my eyes in the dark and let the words settle in my bones like a new religion. Withdraw. Not out of spite, not even out of pain, but because the contract had been rewritten by her. Started small. Monday morning came, and I didn't rise early like I usually did to make sure Jeremy's car insurance was paid. I used to track the dates, manage the logins, transfer the money, text him reminders that went unacknowledged. I had even upgraded his plan last year after his fender bender. Premium coverage. My name on the account. Not anymore. I sat at the table with my coffee and watched the time pass. When Jeremy finally stumbled in looking for his keys, I said nothing. When he asked about the insurance, casually like a man asking where the ketchup was, I said, "Ask your mom." He blinked, confused, and left. That evening, Carol asked me why the automatic payment didn't go through. I shrugged. You said it wasn't my place. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Walked away. Day 2, I skipped the grocery store. Normally I'd go on Tuesdays, her list always waiting on the fridge, scribbled in her handwriting like gospel. Oat milk, whole wheat, salmon if it's on sale. I'd buy everything. Bag it, stock the fridge, make sure everyone's favorites were there. Luke liked the blueberry bars. Jeremy needed high-protein yogurts. I knew their tastes better than their real father ever would. But that week, the fridge remained half empty. No snacks, no salmon, no effort. Wednesday came, and I didn't answer the email from the university's bursar's office. Tuition had always been on a quiet schedule. I'd paid a quarter in advance, always early, always clean. But now the reminder sat in my inbox like a ghost. I didn't click it. I didn't forward it. I let it sit. That evening, Carol brought it up at dinner. Did you forget something with Jeremy's tuition? I kept my fork moving. No. She paused. So? You said it wasn't my place. I'm respecting that. Her lips thinned. The room went quiet. There's a power in consistency. When a man finally follows their rules to the letter, they begin to see how much depended on him breaking them. The silence grew heavier each day. Carol started asking questions wrapped in courtesy. Did you happen to get the water bill? Did you notice the thermostat's been acting weird again? Did you? Every time I gave the same answer. Not my place. And every time, the silence after was louder than anything I could have shouted. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I didn't remind her of the years I spent hauling this family on my back. The 5 a.m. shifts, the triple-digit utility bills, the birthdays I paid for while her ex sent, sorry, maybe next year texts. I didn't mention the thousands I had spent on Jeremy's car. The rent I covered when Luke got kicked out of his dorm. The braces, the therapy, the groceries, the clothes, the shoes they wore while they walked past me in this house like I was part of the furniture. None of that needed saying, because in the absence of my labor, the truth began to rise like rot. By Friday, the garbage hadn't been taken out. The lights in the hallway flickered. The sink in the guest bathroom still leaked. Jeremy's insurance had lapsed. He got a notice on his windshield. Luke's data plan was cut. Apparently, the family plan had been under my name. I sat on the porch that night, watching the house behind me dim with frustration and confusion. Inside, they were scrambling, wondering what was failing, why the machine wasn't running the way it always had. They didn't realize the machine was me. Carol came outside, wrapped in her robe. She looked tired, angry, but not at me. Not yet. More at the unraveling. I don't understand, she said quietly, staring out at the street. Why are you doing this? I kept my gaze forward. I'm not doing anything. That's exactly the problem. No, I said. I'm finally doing what you asked. She was quiet. I could feel the pressure building behind her silence, the panic clawing at the edges. But she didn't speak again. She went inside. She was waiting for me to crack. She still believed this was a phase. Tantrum. That I'd come back to the role. That I'd start paying the bills again because the alternative, her doing it, was too messy, too real, too inconvenient. But what she didn't understand was that this wasn't a protest. It was a resignation. By Sunday, the house was tilting. The tension could be tasted in the air, bitter, metallic. Carol tried to host another talk. This time just me and her. She set 2 mugs down at the table like we were having a coffee date. I think this has gone far enough, she said. I nodded. I agree. She blinked. Didn't expect that. I think we need to figure out who's handling what, she offered. I nodded again. Makes sense. Start with what belongs to you. Her eyes narrowed. I didn't mean it that way. You did, I said. 2 Sundays ago. In front of your sons. She looked away, and for the first time I saw it, the flicker of recognition. Not guilt. Not regret. Fear. Because she finally understood what it meant when a man stops carrying something. It doesn't fall immediately. It leans, tilts, creaks, and then one day it breaks. It was Monday morning when the house blinked. That's what it felt like. like something in its wiring had shorted. The quiet hum that usually wrapped the home like background music was gone. The rhythm was off. The clock in the kitchen had stopped flashing the correct time. The garage door opener clicked, but didn't lift. The trash bin still sat full at the curb, lids blown open, scattered with raccoon-picked refuse no one had thought to clean. And Jeremy stood in the hallway holding his phone like it was a detonator that had failed to go off. "Why did my card get declined at the gas station?" he asked, voice flat, irritated. Carol looked up from her laptop. She didn't answer right away. He turned toward me, already forming the shape of accusation with his mouth. I didn't look at him. I sipped my coffee. Calm, present, unbothered. He scoffed and muttered something under his breath, then walked out the front door, slamming it because slamming it still worked, still meant something, still made noise when all else failed. But the noise didn't move me, not anymore, because this wasn't about loud. It was about absence. The card he was talking about, the one he'd used for 5 years without ever once saying thank you, it was tied to an account I'd created the month he got his driver's license. I set it to reload monthly automatically like a machine that didn't break. Groceries, gas, incidentals. No questions asked. It had reloaded every month, quietly, invisibly, until now. I had stopped it 2 days ago, canceled the link, deleted the profile, cut the vein and let it bleed out. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't need to. If it wasn't my place, then it wasn't my job. I kept that same silence as the days passed, as the consequences started to bloom like bruises across the walls of the home I had built but apparently never owned. Luke was next. Wednesday afternoon, I heard him yelling from his room, muffled, frustrated. His voice carried through the vents like a scream caught in cotton. "Why the hell is the Wi-Fi off?" I didn't respond. I was sitting on the back porch, checking the gutters for pine needles, cleaning out the debris like I always did. Not because they deserved it, not anymore, but because I needed the silence of simple work. My hands in dirt, my mind clean. The Wi-Fi was off because I had changed the billing information. Not out of spite, just out of truth. The account wasn't under my name anymore. I let it lapse. The notification had come and I let it pass. Carol called from the kitchen. "Michael, the internet's down. Can you take a look?" I kept pulling leaves from the drain. She asked again, louder. Still, I didn't move. Eventually, she came outside, wrapped in a sweater she hadn't washed in weeks, and stood beside me like a stranger would. Too close to ignore, too distant to trust. "Did you cancel the service?" she asked. I didn't lie. I stopped paying for it. She paused, eyes narrowing. "Why?" I didn't look up. "Because you said it wasn't mine. You know I didn't mean it that way." "Yes," I said. "You meant it worse." She walked back inside without another word. That evening, Jeremy came home late, slouched, tired, pissed. The lights were off in the driveway. The motion sensor hadn't tripped. Probably needed a battery, or maybe the power had gone out in that part of the house. I used to notice those things. I used to fix them before anyone saw the crack. Not anymore. He knocked on my office door. I didn't answer. He knocked again, harder. "Hey," he said. "Did something happen to the rent?" I let him say it twice before I opened the door. "The rent?" I asked. He looked down at his phone. "Yeah, I got an alert from the landlord. Says it hasn't been paid." "I thought you..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't want to say the words out loud. "I thought you paid it." Of course he did. Of course they all did. I stepped aside and let him see the office. The walls were lined with unpaid receipts, old account printouts, spreadsheets that stretched back years. Every dime tracked, every cent documented. My financial fingerprints were on every part of their lives, from the phone plans to the monthly Prime delivery of dog food they never thanked me for. I pointed to the corner of the room. "That's where your lease documents are. Your name. Your responsibility. You're an adult, Jeremy." He stared at me like I had spit in his drink. "This isn't fair," he said. I nodded. "No, but it's real." He left. Didn't slam the door this time. Maybe he finally understood the silence wasn't weakness. It was a verdict. The next day, Carol tried again. She made dinner her version of peace. Chicken, mashed potatoes, salad with a little too much vinegar. The table was set with 4 plates, even though Luke wouldn't be home. He was avoiding the house lately, sleeping at a friend's or a girlfriend's, somewhere with working Wi-Fi. She lit a candle, played jazz in the background. Her peace offering was as desperate as it was calculated. "I think we need to talk," she said as I sat down. I cut into the chicken. "We're already talking. I mean about the house," she said. "The payments. The boys." I looked at her. Really looked. She hadn't aged much these past 5 years. She still had that polished, effortless look. The kind women like her used to survive chaos. But her eyes were different now. Smaller. Dimmer. "What about them?" I asked. She hesitated. They're confused." "No," I said. "They're entitled. You trained them that way." Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked down at her plate. I went on. "You told them I wasn't part of this family. You told me. You made it clear I was just an extra, a sponsor, not a father. You didn't think I'd listen." She blinked fast. It was in the moment. I didn't mean for." "You meant every word," I said. "And now you get to live in the world where I believe you." She didn't argue. She knew better. The next crack came on Friday, the tuition. Jeremy's school sent him a notice. Final warning. No payment, no classes. I heard him shouting on the phone with someone. Probably the registrar's office. Or maybe Carol. I didn't know. I didn't care. He burst into the kitchen like a storm. "What the hell is going on?" he shouted. Carol tried to calm him. "We'll figure it out." "No," he said. "He always handled this. Why didn't he?" I stood up. I stopped. Jeremy's eyes were wild. "You can't just. You've been paying for years." I nodded. "And then I stopped. But I need that class. I can't. I'll lose the credit." "Then you better call your real father," I said. The words hit harder than anything I'd said before, because we all knew what they meant. Todd wasn't coming. Todd never came. Todd was a name on a birth certificate and a ghost on holidays. Carol stepped in then. "Michael, don't." "Don't what?" I snapped. "Don't say what we all know is true? Don't hold them accountable? You've let them live off me like I was a bottomless account. Like love didn't cost. Like respect was optional." She didn't answer. And that was the problem. That had always been the problem. In her silence, they had learned to devalue me. In her nods, they had learned to disregard me. In her refusal to correct them, they had found permission to spit in my face while holding out their hands. But the hand was closed now. And the fallout was just beginning. That night, I logged into every account. Not with anger. Not with vengeance. With precision. Tuition portals. Cancelled. Recurring rent transfers. Cancelled. Insurance renewals. Deleted. Phone plan? Split. Their lines were now theirs. Let them pay the fees. Every account that bled me closed. It took less than 30 minutes to erase 10 years of sacrifice. I sat back in my chair and felt nothing. No grief. No rage. Just air. They would notice. And they did. They noticed. Of course they did. Jeremy first, always Jeremy. He came down the stairs with a printed email in his hand. Like a lawyer presenting evidence to a jury, he thought he could int *mid-8. His face was flushed, mouth tight with disbelief. "They dropped me," he said. "No greeting. No lead-in. I missed the tuition deadline and now they've dropped me." I looked up from my coffee. "That's what happens." He stared at me, as if I just told him the sky had collapsed and I was okay with it. "Do you understand what this means?" "Yes. I could lose my entire semester." "You already did." He slammed the paper down on the table. "You think this is fair?" "No," I said. "I think it's long overdue." Carol appeared behind him, robe pulled tight, her hair a mess of sleep and stress. "Michael!" I raised a hand. Not to silence her, but to draw a line. "No more," I said. Her lips quivered. But she didn't argue. Maybe because she knew I'd won. Or maybe because she'd finally realized this was never a fight. This was a withdrawal. And when a man withdraws, there's no apology. No explanation. Only the absence. Luke came home that night, angry. He kicked the front door like a child locked out of his own bedroom. "My phone's dead," he shouted. "What the hell did you do?" "I gave you what you wanted," I said. "Distance. Independence. Nothing to do with me." He stared at me like I was a stranger, which is exactly what he'd always treated me like. Carol tried again, the peacemaker, the diplomat. She cooked that night. The good plates, the heavy wine glasses, the playlist she used on holidays when she wanted the illusion of warmth. We sat at the table like strangers in a waiting room. Jeremy refused to make eye contact. Luke had headphones in, one dangling out of his hoodie. Carol sat across from me, her fork chasing food she didn't eat. She spoke first. Of course she did. "This can't go on like this." I said nothing. "They're just boys. They're men," I said. "And they've lived like princes on my dime for a decade. No more. You're punishing them for not loving you the way you wanted," she said, her voice steady but tight. "You're asking for something they don't owe." "No," I said. "I'm punishing myself for thinking that love didn't come with expectations. I thought if I gave enough, they'd see me, respect me, maybe even choose me." I looked down at my plate. Cold food. Warm rage. I was wrong. She reached across the table, slow, cautious, like touching a wounded animal. "Michael, you're not just walking away from the money. You're walking away from us." I nodded. "Then stop me." She flinched. Because she knew she couldn't. Because she already had. 2 weeks passed. The house decayed. Bills arrived with final warnings. The fridge went unreplenished. Luke got a part-time job at a gas station he hated. Jeremy sulked in the basement, living off microwaved meals and the slow, creeping dread that his future had finally cost him something. And Carol? Carol drifted. She still slept beside me, but there was a canyon between our bodies. She tried to pretend it was still a marriage. She still asked how my day was, still poured me coffee, but the taste was gone. She had stood in front of her sons and carved me out of the family like a tumor. And now she wanted the comfort without the consequence. But that's not how it works. One morning I woke up early, earlier than usual. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you question whether you're still part of it. I walked past the boys' rooms. Both doors were closed, locked. I went to the kitchen. The coffee pot was empty. Carol sat on the couch, fully dressed, her suitcase by her side. "I'm going to stay at my sister's for a while," she said. I nodded, sat across from her. She looked down at her hands. No ring. Jeremy's trying to get reinstated. Luke's looking at online classes. We're figuring it out. "You'll be fine," I said. "You always are." She looked up. There was something in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. Not anger, not guilt, something close to shame. "I never meant to make you feel." "You didn't make me feel anything," I said. "You just confirmed what I already knew." She stood, smoothed her coat, picked up the suitcase. At the door, she hesitated. "If I asked you to forgive them, would you?" "No." She nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't beg. She left. That was 3 months ago. The house is quiet now. Empty, mostly. Jeremy moved into a shared apartment downtown. Luke crashed with friends. Carol never came back. Not really. She emails sometimes. Short messages. No warmth. No love you. Just updates. I stopped responding. The bills are lighter. The silence thicker. The nights longer. But for the first time, I feel honest. There are no winners here. Only consequences. I gave them everything. And in return, they gave me the truth. Too late, too cold, too clear. I wasn't their father. So I stopped being one. That's not revenge. That's reality. Love without respect is just servitude. And I served long enough. So now I ask you, if you were told you were nothing, would you keep giving everything? Or would you finally walk away? You tell me, because I already did.